So we're going to wait a second, make sure people actually show up, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, so right now, welcome to the first episode of Screaming Into the Void with myself as your host, Matthew Martin, a.k.a. Martin Productions, and my good friend, Stephen Parra. So the topic at hand today that we felt the need to discuss is something that kind of hits close to home with the both of us, is a lot of just people in our own country, mostly just people complaining about just themselves and not realizing the world is much bigger than themselves, I feel like. Because there's a lot of times, especially, a lot of the things we want to discuss ironically come from social media, of course, but it's mostly just people not realizing the world is bigger than themselves and understand that there's a lot more problems than just the small things that they deal with day in and day out. So with that being said, we'll get started.
Real quick, just a couple disclaimers. Any opinions being spoken here on tonight are Matt's and my own. We do not have any affiliation to any kind of company, or we're not being sponsored to say what we say. It is just our opinions.
Yes, and I should also feel the need to say, because of that, these opinions do not reflect the opinions or ideas of the United States Air Force or the Department of Defense. These are solely my own opinions, not that of the United States Air Force. All right. I'll add that disclaimer in every video, every podcast, sorry. With that being said, we'll get started. So I think for myself, and one of the things that kind of upsets me, the more and more I see it, is just people not necessarily complaining, but they say that everything that they have in their lives, at least in this country, is so poor, like there's nothing good around here. And I'm not saying to dismiss that. I think what I'm trying to mostly get at for these people is just understanding that, I deal with depression too, I get it. It's not easy no matter how you look at it. But at the same time, it's not that bad either. You have a lot more opportunities. You have a lot more at hand. You have, most of the people dismiss the fact that they have clean water, food that they can readily access at any given moment. It's these small things that people don't take into account of. Realistically, other countries, whether you know it or not, actually make fun of the U.S. more often than not for our lifestyles, because it all goes back to the idea of gorging ourselves. Typically speaking, a lot of countries make fun of us because we eat sugary drinks, we eat in excess, and we have fast food readily available at almost every other intersection. It's these small things that actually make us get ridiculed in other countries. And as Americans, it's funny to think of it that way, because to us, it's so normal. The ability to just get what you need at almost anywhere, right? Eat whatever you want. Amazon, 2-day shipping, Walmart, 24 hours, McDonald's, 24 hours, whatever it may or may not be. It's hilarious that people will have these things, and I understand that a lot of these things also do cause that chemical imbalance of not taking care of yourself correctly that cause these issues. But at the same time, it amazes me that people will think that what's happening to them solely is the problem with not only themselves, but with the world. When realistically, I have personally seen much, much worse than that.
I'd agree with that. I would say just real quick, let's take a step back and look what is because you were saying how people in other countries, let's just say Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, countries in Europe, they make fun of the U.S. for our lifestyle. But I guess, where am I trying to go with this? It's a cultural thing. It's not necessarily we're trying to have this idea of be fat because we can. It's a cultural thing with the way that the way our country was founded was it's the land of the free, but it's we bring people into this country that want to it's the land of opportunity. I think that's a better way to put it. It's the land of opportunity where people can come here from war-ravaged areas and legally, of course, legally, come here from war-ravaged areas and start a new life and be successful with little to no reparations they have to make to their own home country. They can just leave.
Well, that's the thing, is just that you're inadvertently proving my point, is that you have people here who don't see that opposite side of the fence, right? You have people here who believe that this country is so poor because of these things that there are problems in this country, don't get me wrong, but then there are people from all over the world that want to flock here whenever they can because of those opportunities. And that's proving my point, is just that you have these opportunities, open opportunities to come here, start a new life, And what other countries realistically could you get these opportunities to and forward to start anywhere else besides other like high-end first world countries, but realistically wouldn't be open to visitors like we are? I guess maybe Switzerland or something like that, right? So
Yeah.
at what point, what other countries in the world could you really start anew here? People would say, well, Canada. No, you cannot do that. Canadian citizenship takes years to attain without proper documentation. It's never going to happen anyway, so that's not really an argument. So I guess my point being is just that I understand that we have problems here of our own, but at the same time, how could you always dismiss that everything is always so bad here? If your bubble is purely only first world, you cannot properly discuss major world issues because you only know that of your own, which is your parents yell at you, or you can't go to college, or something like that, or maybe more so, like where you can't eat food every day, or you don't have water or proper housing. At that point, I can understand it more. This isn't to dismiss those people, right? This is to dismiss the people who have those things that just
the true first world problem people where a new iPhone came out and you don't have it, or I want to buy a Gucci belt and I don't have enough money in my bank account to buy that Gucci belt this week. I have to go with like a lesser brand belt or something like that.
Right. It's people like that. It's just an understanding that as much as yes, it sucks that there's a lot of things I want. I want a nicer car. I don't want to be driving around in a Ford Focus that transmission literally shoves me into the windshield. I don't want that either. But yeah, it's understanding called living within your means and understanding your life circumstances. Trust me, I wish everyone wishes they were born into a billionaire family. I think everyone wishes that. But at the same time, it's realizing that not everyone is. But at the same time, it'd be foolhardy to understand that what you have isn't amazing for what it is. Again, people who complain about these things don't have to worry about walking outside of their house and getting shot on contact. Don't have to worry about literally fighting for their next meal. It's things like that. The genuine first world problems can be same within country, meaning that you have these people here who are just dismissing people beneath them that refuse to acknowledge them, and in other countries as well. It's amazing to me that people can be as ignorant of these things as they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Going on that, I would say the problem is that people, like you've already declared this, we're kind of reiterating the same points, but people's perspective are their own. And the problem comes from when not only that they have a limited perspective, but they think their perspective is the perspective to have. And if you don't see it their way, you're wrong.
Yes, it's because we're in this generation now where information can be immediately shared and discussed. It's also ironic how it's also created the idea of agree with me or die. It's literally... It's amazing how information has never been more readily available, yet it's creating the idea of you're with me or against me. This is like George Bush in 2001. You're with us or you're with the enemy. It's amazing to me because now you have people that don't want to go outside their bubble, literally ever, because they don't want to be disagreed with, because they were never told that, hey, you can be wrong. No one likes being told they're wrong. No one, unless that's your kink, then, whatever. But really, no one likes being told, hey, you're wrong or you're being dumb. No one wants to be told that, but it's understanding that that's called being an adult. It's absolutely become amazing to me that people have never in world history for the human race have had an opportunity to be more intelligent when information is literally a few types away on a phone, yet absolutely refuse to acknowledge any other points besides their own, even when you can dismiss any argument they have just about instantly.
Yep. And that's a very valid point with the whole thing being that when we live in like the technological super age now where we have the internet, like we can connect to just about any site on the face of the planet that's on like public domain, and we can find encyclopedias, we can learn new skills, but people would rather spend their time on Facebook or Twitter spewing their opinions that are wholly uneducated in most cases, or I'm not going to say in most cases, but in many cases are wholly uneducated or they're extremely biased. It's a problem when you'd rather be able to spew your opinion on this like information superhighway rather than find out if you're actually right or wrong with your opinion and learn from your perspective.
Well, that's the thing, and one of the things that kind of upsets me the older that I've gotten is just the more I try to discuss these things with, it's mostly people of my generation too, but even older people I've noticed as well. I mean, I'm not going to obviously put names out there, but I have family members that are incredibly political. But when I discuss things with them, it always goes back to you're too young to understand. No, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. If age is always your way to dismiss something, you're ignorant. I'm sorry, but I absolutely refuse to acknowledge you as an intelligent human being if everything about you is you're too young to understand, unless you're actually talking to a 5-year-old. Really.
Right.
But if you're actually talking to someone who's legally an adult, who can form an educated opinion, who is better at finding readily available information than you are, how can you possibly sit there and tell me that I'm too young to understand? You can't do that. Because at that point, the only thing you're saying is, I don't want to admit I'm wrong, so you're just too young to understand me. It's like you're not, you can't form an opinion because you're not as old as I am, realistically.
Right, that's exactly it. And it also comes down to where, like, people, instead of bringing up new facts and new potential debates and arguments, they'll just spew the same, like, 5 facts over and over and over and over and over again, and hope to God you're just going to say, you know what, F it, you're fine, you're right. Just leave me alone.
Right, because...
And then they...
Sorry, go ahead.
And then they get to walk around with their head held high, being like, I won that debate so easily. Like...
It's because people don't want to understand that sometimes it's not worth debating with someone who is not open to changing their mind. If I refuse to debate you, it's not because I'm afraid of your opinions or afraid of your facts, if they're even facts. It's because I know that debating with you will get me nowhere. And that's the thing I also want to discuss, is that people are too afraid to have those debates. I am openly willing to debate anything. And I'm more than willing to accept when I'm wrong. I may not like it, as discussed earlier, but I'll do it. But again, some people need to understand that if I refuse to acknowledge you or talk to you, it's not because you won. It's not because I'm afraid of you. It's because I understand that talking with you will get me and you absolutely nowhere, because your head is too far up your own rear end. That's the problem. It's just, it's hard to be a person who wants to have those debates, but yet it's impossible at the same time when people just refuse to even budge on any points they have. Because sure, you may have a few facts here and there that are absolutely correct. But if you have 3 facts and I have 15 facts, sure, what you said is still correct. It doesn't change the fact that you're completely outweighed. A fact does not make your entire point correct. It's a fact in and of itself, purely to the information of that fact. It doesn't mean that it's wholly correct. It doesn't prove your entire argument unless it's based solely on the one fact, which at that point, why are you even discussing something? It's not worth it if one fact can prove it all. Either that, or it's incredibly one-sided, and at that point, anyone on the counter side to that is just stupid. So, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example where, like, I'm in college and I spend most of my time going to class, hanging out with friends, and eating food, and like that's really it. Like, I don't do much else other than that. But the people, like, I see wandering around this campus, like, they're not people you want to have a conversation with, because, like, I've seen, like, this one kid who lives down the hall from me. He's got, like, this crazy blue hair, and, like, he thinks he's, like, this super genius, and he can't take constructive criticism in the slightest. He's a digital media and animation major, which it's kind of a conundrum with that, where because of where he stands in his major, he can't take constructive criticism, but his argument to that is that he's in a creative major. And it's all art. It's not like wrong or right or good or bad. It's just all art. And it's like, that's not correct. That's not a proper argument to what you're trying to defend yourself for.
If you're going to hide behind your educational purpose as to what you're going for to prove your point, then you have no point at all. So I think my favorite thing is just when I'm discussing something with somebody and they're like, well, I'm this major, okay? And it doesn't change the fact that what you're saying is wrong. It doesn't dismiss anything. Congrats, you are paying a whole lot of money for a piece of paper, no offense. But it doesn't mean you're correct. I'm sorry, but that's not a debate. That's purely a fact for yourself. It's not an argument.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, and a lot of people seem to think that coming to college is like, it's just the way to do things. And like, I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those people. Whereas like, now that I've been in college for a few years, I'm like, yeah, this really isn't all that it's cooked up to be. And I've seen people that are like almost 10 years older than me with a college degree, and like they are gonna make like less than I do, like working at McDonald's. But they have a college degree, so that it literally shows that it's just like it's worthless. And like they'll argue to the end of the earth that like their degree is worth something when they got a degree in basket weaving and not mechanical engineering, and so they don't know why they aren't being like handed a 6-figure job for basket weaving.
Well, I think it's interesting to say because there was a tweet put out yesterday where people were arguing that you shouldn't be in debt to pursue higher ends of education. And I understand that everyone should pursue higher ends of education, but at the same time, it shouldn't be free either. Look, I understand that no one wants to go into severe amounts of debt to pursue higher ends of means of education. Right. I understand that. But at the same time, pursuing that higher means of education means that someone has to be paid to do it. Things have to be in motion to teach you. It can't be free either. It doesn't make any sense because the means to teach you means someone is paying something to teach you how to do whatever it is you're going to school for. I'm sorry, but besides high school, higher means of education is solely on you because no one told you to go there. Look, there are plenty
society told you to go there.
No. There are plenty of people that I have met that have no degrees that make a lot of money. All of my college counterparts, comparison to me right now, don't make anywhere near as much as money as I do. For example, an E6 right now that I know is married, with married BAH, now granted this is all based on area, makes on paper $70,000 a year in E6. That's a high tier NCO level, but I mean, I'm one tier beneath that. I on paper now make almost 40 some odd thousand a year already, and I will still get my higher school degree. Now, I'm not saying, hey, by the way, everyone go join the military. I'm not saying that. But the thing is, saying you need to go to college to always get that higher tier amount of money right away is ignorant because that's not even remotely true. I understand that some colleges pay way too high for what they ask for. I understand that. But at the same time, it's your own issue because you are the one who said, I'm going to willingly accept this debt to pursue education under the idea, the hope that I will get a job in 4 to 5 years that will pay for this. It's literally the biggest shot in the dark, and I absolutely refuse to take that chance. That's why I'm where I'm at right now.
Well, it's... Speaking as someone in college, it's not necessarily a shot in the dark.
Depends on your career field, though. For some people, it absolutely
right. That's what I'm getting. There are
better options than just your own. There are some that are almost guaranteed money, but still.
What I was saying was, yes, higher education's on yourself for that, but you have to, you have to have the knowledge and the willingness to put in the hours and put in the time to get the degree that you want to get. And with me, I should have already been graduated, but I'm not. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And that's the sacrifice I have to make. I have to wait another 1.5, 2, 3 years before I can go and start making money. But once I do, I can go ahead and make much more money in the idea of steady income and being able to afford things consistently rather than working a hourly job at McDonald's where if they hire too many people, they let other workers not work for a couple weeks and you end up losing your income supplementally.
Correct. And the thing is just when I was saying that I make more money on average right now than the college student, which is absolutely correct, it's based on the idea of shorter term gain, longer term loss. However, to say that as an argument in comparison to what I was saying is not correct either because I still have the opportunity to pursue college. And based on my job in service, I hate saying this because it sounds incredibly cocky, but I can walk out of service and walk into a $70,000 job. Snap. I can't snap, but like that. It's not hard. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's just that there are better alternatives than just sacrificing so much money for the idea that you may get money back. And then there's personal responsibility. You said this earlier. If your major isn't something that you love, fantastic. But you take the repercussions of your actions. If you go into a career field that you know will not pay you money, then that's your own problem. No one is obligated to pay you anything. Because if your degree is worthless and only good to a certain number of people, and if those certain number of people can't pay you anything anyway, then why did you choose it? I'm sorry, but again, it goes to personal responsibility. You went to college. You got a 4 or 6 year degree. Fantastic. I'm proud of you. It doesn't mean anyone is obligated to pay you anything. I'm sorry, but that's just true. I wish people would understand that more. Your degree isn't a key to anything. Or maybe I should rephrase, it's not a guarantee.
Right, that's what I was going to say, because a degree is a key to a lot of things. It can be a key to money, it can be a key to a career, it can be a key to lifelong debt. But it's still one step on the process of accomplishing a task.
It's a tool more than anything.
Exactly.
Which is fine. Again, I know I've been kind of sitting here, not necessarily crapping on the idea of college, but crapping on the idea.
You're biased because you're not in college, but I'm in college, so I'm biased to college.
Yes, but not even that. But if you've noticed, for a lot of these points, you have still agreed with me. Because I am not crapping on the idea of higher end of education. I am crapping on the idea that you are owed something because you pursue that education. And that is the sole difference here. You know that everyone who does decently know me knows I didn't go to college purely because I didn't think it would work for me. I kind of had enough with the idea of sitting in the classroom and boring my eyes out. I had enough. I was ready to go to work. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to sit in classrooms anymore. I didn't want to just be bored out of my mind. And I didn't like the idea of accruing debt under the idea, again, that I might make money and might be able to pay it back. I can barely handle being late to work sometimes. I can't handle thousands of dollars being on my head of debt either. I don't know how people manage that, but I couldn't do it. Right? So again, it's not for everyone, and maybe it's not for me, but when I do go, because I will be pursuing it in the future, hopefully my opinion will change. And likely will, because I won't be paying for a vast majority of it. Because the Air Force will pay up to a certain point. Anything past that is on your head. But I don't know. It's more or less understanding that, again, I wish that education was cheaper. But at the same time, you can't just say that it should be free or it shouldn't be your responsibility. Because it is.
One of the reasons that a lot of people go to college that I've seen on campus is college is school. School is something you've done for 12 years from age 5 until age 18, and then you have to go and make a choice. A lot of people like to go to college because it's familiar. They know that they know the classroom setting, they know the structure of how things work. So instead of jumping headfirst into something they don't know if they can handle, like going into a trade or the military or something like that, but they find comfort that they know what they're getting into.
It's all familiarity, which I completely understand.
Exactly.
But it's one of those things to me of, I understand the idea of always going with what's familiar, because it'd be completely hypocritical of me to say, no, I'm always wanting something new. That's not true at all. But at the same time, I think it's not necessarily ignorant, but foolish to make your decision solely based on that when it comes to a major decision such as that. I'm not saying that no one should pick it, but if you're going to pick it solely based on the reason of, I understand the setting, I understand the lifestyle, that's ignorant, because at the same time, all you're going to do is push back that change you're going to have to face for another 4 to 6 years, maybe only 2 years if you go for an associate's. So you're going to have to accept that at one point, regardless of what you do. So I just wish I just hope people aren't making that decision solely based on, this is familiar, so I'll stick with it.
But it's ignorant, and that's the point, is that, like, if it's all they know, ignorance is bliss. And
it absolutely is.
So that's why they do it. Because why would you be potentially scared and hurt and don't know you're going into, rather than be something that, like, you know what you're getting into, and it can still lead to a moderately good, like, lifestyle or a good feeling, I'll say, because what some people do isn't a good lifestyle. It's a big, I guess, it all depends. That's really what I'm saying.
I guess ignorance is bliss could be the primary focal point of this entire podcast, because that's really that's the overarching idea of this entire section. Is just understanding that the world is much bigger around you, and that realistically, and I guess this is going to be an absolutely foolish way to say this, but realistically, no one cares about your feelings or life more than you. We have a saying in the Air Force, no one cares about your career more than you. And that's the truth. If you're going to sit there and be a terrible airman, if you're going to sit there and not do your job, not shoot for the stars, or just not even do the bare minimum of what you're asked to do, no one's going to put you in for awards. No one's going to put you good on your APR, your enlisted performance report. That's like
you get out what you put in, right?
Exactly. You get out what you put in. No one's going to care more than you.
That's how college is.
And no one's going to babysit you. But I guess the blowback right now is the generation of everyone's going to cater to you, which is our generation. The idea of you being remotely special means you're entitled to anything that you think you are worth, which is not true, because realistically, as I said, I say that a lot, realistically, really no one cares but you, and maybe your family and your friends. But on the job market, out in the real world, I hate saying it like that, no one cares. A job is a business transaction. They're going to pay you what you're worth for the best work output. That's what a job is. It's a business transaction. So understanding that you are always going to be paid what they think you're worth, not what you think you're worth. It is your responsibility, hopefully, as an employee, to negotiate what you believe are worth, but don't overestimate it. Understand that you're always going to be paid low to start, because to them and to everyone else, you're worth nothing.
Right. You're just some Joe Schmo. You're some schmuck who came in off the street, wanting to get a job, and then you get to discussing salary, and you're like, hey, 120,000 starting. I know what I'm worth. And they're like, excuse me, who are you again?
Right. You aren't worth that to anyone. And that's why I've always found it hilarious that people say that, I have a degree. Congrats. So did the last 4 guys that walked into my office. It doesn't mean anything to me. And again, I hate saying it like this too, but experience trumps a degree pretty much always.
It always does. Like, I actually I had a conversation over the summer with a guy who he did something similar to what I did. He went to a 2-year degree, got an associate's, and he's much older than me, but he went to a community college, got a 2-year associate's degree in information technology, like what I'm going for. And he said, I'm not going for a 4-year. I'm going to go into the workforce. And he's been working since then, whereas I could have been working for just about starting 3 years now.
About the amount of time I've been in service.
But I chose to go for a 4-year degree because I know a 2-year degree will get you from like a $35,000 to like an $85,000 position and that comes with experience and benefits and everything, like putting your hard days work in week after week after week after week. Whereas a 4-year degree, because it's a 4-year degree and it's a piece of paper that says I did more than the 2-year degree did in an educational setting, then they where was I going with this? I was saying, okay, I remember now. A 4-year degree is worth more upfront and over the top because
it's always an idea of a long-term.
It shows that you can commit to something more than somebody else. They went for 2 years, you went for 4 years. Who was there longer and who did more work with these requirements there?
At the same time, though, it all depends on what that 2-year person did. Did they do 2 years and then dismiss themselves and go do something completely irrelevant to that degree? Or did they go and apply it and gain more experience on top of what they already knew?
Right.
So I guess it really depends on what that person in the 2-year spot did, because I think one of the things that I've been trying to come to when it comes to having debates like this is just, I did this, so I'm worth more. No, you didn't. You think that. What did the person you're comparing yourself to do? What did he do? What did she do? What, in contrast to you, did that other person do that you think makes you worth more to them? Yes, you went for the higher tier degree. Fantastic. But what did that other person do? Do you even know? No? Then you can't say what you did is worth more because you can't compare it. You don't know the information at hand.
Right.
How could you possibly justify that?
Jen in the chat just asked thoughts on trade schools. You got anything for that, Matt?
I mean, I would always say a trade school is never a bad idea, honestly, because it's, in my honest opinion, trade schools, things like that, are not necessarily what keep the country running, but that's where your real blue, white-collar guys are. Not knowing the difference between the colors, I always get them confused, but that's where those people, the necessary people, in my opinion, come from. I would always suggest that going to a trade school is never a bad idea. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, trade schools, I think they're definitely like the best, like, they're the best like industry to get into because you'll never not have a job. Like,
pretty much. You always have someone out there who needs you. There's always going to be like, that need.
There aren't going to be like, people aren't going to like stop taking a crap in the next 200 years. There's always going to be toilets. That means there's always going to have to be plumbers to fix the toilets.
Until we get to the Family Guy age where you can digitally take out someone's poop. When that happens, you might be out of a job.
That'll be long after our time, though. So
I'm just saying the things to consider. Looking forward to the future.
Oh yeah, but trade schools are awesome. I mean, I go to a school of technology, which is quote unquote a technology school, meaning it's more of a fancy trade school. It started out as a 2-year school. I'm not in that program, but I know people in that program, and they're definitely some of the hardest working students on this campus.
Oh, without a doubt. And you can always see the difference between the people who actually want to be there to learn, people who are being told or feel like they have to be there to learn.
Yep.
I've always kind of been upset at the idea of mostly the people who... what's the best way to put this? The idea that people need to pursue that education. Again, it's not... I don't want to compare it to myself because I'm not everyone else. And service is definitely not for everyone. I've tried telling people that numerous times, that there are some people that I've met that have said, I want to join service, and I want to tell them straight up, no, you're not cut out for it. I've wanted to tell that to so many different people, but there is definitely more alternatives between military and college to find that paying job or that experience that you so crave.
Right.
And that again, no one is obligated to pay you what you believe you're worth, nor did anyone tell you you will go to college, or in this case, if your parents did, then that's unfortunate. And also, Jen, I knew it was you. I knew you're devil. But yeah, and that kind of goes back to the over idea of people being too stuck in their own bubble. It's those people that think that their life is so hard, that think that everything that they have in their life is the hardest that any human being could ever deal with. But no, I've had to literally watch women be shot walking out of a house. I've had to watch women get beaten. I've had to watch women get tortured. Mostly women, ironically. I've had to watch young boys be raped. I've had to watch young men get beaten by their fathers for not listening to them. And this isn't something attacking against a certain type of religion, because I know that's where a lot of people's minds are going right now. But this is contrasting the idea of, you really think that your life is that hard? Really? Do you really think that you having to go to college, sit there for a few hours a day and think, oh, this is the worst thing ever, while you're tweeting it from your new iPhone and posting on Instagram how much you hate your life, is that difficult when there are people who don't know where their next meal is coming from, who don't know if their dad's going to come home and actually beat them to death, who don't know if, as a wife, this is your last day actually living on this planet? Really? I'm sorry, but what? Are you really going to sit here and justify that to me? Because, one, you really can't, even though I'm the guy who's always said, always be open to that discussion, but how can you possibly debate that? How? I understand that it is tough. I'm not saying it isn't. But to say that it's the hardest thing ever is ignorance. I'm sorry, but it is.
But that's what it comes down to, is that it's ignorance. Like, that's what it comes down to, is that it's ignorance. Because with the idea of first world problems, is that the people complaining have never left their own bubble, so they only have their own experiences and those like immediately around them to compare themselves to. And unless they decide to go on the information superhighway and find something that's worse than what they're experiencing to get a new glimpse of reality, which most people aren't going to do that because they don't want to feel like nobody, like, you've got to be pretty sadistic to like want to eagerly go and look up like videos of like countries that are like third world countries with like war, terror and stuff going on.
Oh, like, I totally agree. No one absolutely wants to see that. I don't want to see that. But at the same time, that ignorance I almost believe it's not necessarily deadly, but terrible. And the reason I say that is because it's going to be those people who grow up who still have never experienced what life is like outside of their realm, who are going to be the next people making decisions for other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's not necessarily information that everyone should have, but it's information that you should at least be aware of that happens. I'm not saying you have to look at it. I'm not saying you have to watch it. I'm just saying that you need to be aware that it happens. Because there are people that I have told these things, like, no, that can't be happening. There are college kids who think that every country is like the United States, which is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I almost fell back in my chair laughing. I'm like, how? Who told you this? Are you really this ignorant? How? What? Really? I mean, I'm sure you've run into those kids the same way, and you know that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Again, and this is first-hand experience. This isn't me talking out of my bunghole. You have told me this. And I imagine in more Ivy League schools, it's probably even worse.
Oh, right. Like when you've been coddled your entire life and you have like you've been fed by a silver spoon your entire life and never had to work or pay for anything, and you got into the working world, but you don't really. You go and work for mommy and daddy's company or their law firm or their architecture firm or whatever your prerogative is, and they stay so trapped in that little bubble that when like something awful happens to them, they just completely lose it. Like they completely lose it. Like it's like those freak out videos when like some spoiled brat gets a Ferrari and it's the wrong color. And like they make their parents feel like crap because, oh, you bought me a Ferrari, but it's the wrong color.
I wanted a Lamborghini. Man.
If somebody buys me a freaking brand new car, it could be a damn Prius. I'd drive it.
Yeah,
like,
I would.
You give and you take. But then again, it all comes back down to the perspective. And when people aren't willing to look beyond their own bubble, that's when they get into trouble.
And that's the thing, it's just that it's ignorance to a point. I understand that if you're born into that realm and you haven't seen that information and no one's told you, that's fine. However, if you're going to dismiss that it doesn't happen at all, then it's ignorance on your part. I'm not saying everyone should be born with that knowledge. But at the same time, saying that it doesn't happen is wrong. You can't dismiss that information as much as you would like to. It doesn't work that way.
I think that comes less on the fault of the person saying that, but
But who?
What?
But who? Less than the person, but more on who.
Oh, sorry, my mic cut out. It falls on less on the person who said it, but the person who allowed them to say it.
Agreed. Or
because,
I hate saying it this way, but their parents, really.
Right, parents, teachers, like political figures, social media icons, YouTubers, even just like influencers. That's it.
Well, I think it's absolutely hilarious when mostly celebrities complain about the issues within this country. I think that's absolutely adorable, really. Mm-hmm. I can't stop laughing, especially like, you know, it's mostly the ones of our generation too. And then the ones who, again, and I am not trying to get really too political in this because I know this is going to upset some people, but during the election when, you know, Trump was running and everyone's like, if he wins, I'm leaving this country. Notice that just about everyone who said that didn't leave.
Yeah, no, they all stayed because where are they going to go? That like is better than the U.S.
That also accommodates their lifestyle.
Exactly. Like I'll give you an example of something I saw over this past January. I took a cruise and I went to Cuba. Cuba, a very poverty-stricken country and like very poor. The people there live on an average salary about $30 a month. So, but
that's
getting back to my point. Exactly. And like I watched a special. They showed it on the ship of an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians when Kanye, Kim, Khloe, and Kylie, I think I got them all. They all went to Cuba and like they were talking about like, oh my God, this place is so beautiful. It's like, yeah, you're in the Caribbean. It's not a bad place to be, but like all they were talking was like Kanye was like, oh, I want to film a music video here. I want this, I want that, and it's like you came here as they said it was going to be like a relief mission to give them money and stuff, and they did just that, but they ended up getting kicked out of the country for doing that. But they made it more about themselves, right? And like, what can they do for me rather than what can I do for them?
Well, that's the thing too. Is just that, of course, you thought the beautiful parts of the country were beautiful. Why did you go to the poverty-stricken areas? Why did you?
Oh no, the whole place is poverty. Like you can.
No, I understand that, but you went to the best-looking place to state this information. Why again are you? It's hilarious how much they avoid the issues at hand because they want. It's not like they want people to think that every world is like where they come from, but they want people to think that everywhere they touch is beautiful. No one wants to film a music video with bums in the background. That sounds terrible, but no celebrity wants to do that unless your entire purpose is to prove a point. Which in that case, more power to you. I understand that, but really, no one of their status is going to do that.
Right. So, exactly.
Again, how exactly do you do this at that point? You know what I mean? It's honestly awful that people like that can do that, and that's why a couple days ago, people who follow me on Twitter saw me tweet out, "Why are the Paul brothers famous?" I watched a video. Now I watch a lot of people rip on them because it makes me laugh, really. But at the same time, it blows my mind. These people, these blonde-haired went to Japan, and we all know what they did. Besides the obvious. But it was the disrespect of the culture, how they acted in public to try and make people laugh. But my problem is when they go over to those countries, that's what people think of Americans, is idiots like that.
Yep.
It's people who disrespect an entire culture purely for the sake of internet lulz. How? And I can't blame people for thinking Americans are like that because that's what they do when they go over there. They think that when they go over there, they're entitled to act this way because I'm paying money to be here. That's not how that works. You always pay respect to the culture you're around. It doesn't matter how much money you pay to be there. I don't care. That's why when I go overseas, or when I do, hopefully, and people who do go overseas, they're told this is the culture at hand. Do this and try your best not to be offensive. You will innately offend someone, but apologize and move on. You're not here to push American ideals on them. You're here to represent us.
You're the tourist in their country, not the other way around.
Exactly. So
you're not the gift to them. You're just someone
that happens
in
to be
their
here.
Country.
Yes, you're just someone who happens to be here.
Exactly.
So that's why when we do go over there, they say you are going to inherently offend someone on accident, hopefully not on purpose. Just apologize, keep a note of it, and move on. That's it. That's all you got to do. But again, then you have people like those idiots who go over there and make it their goal to be as annoying as possible. And it blows my mind. Really, it does.
And what blows my mind more than that is that there are people that defend their actions and support them regardless of what actually, like...
Oh, because it's funny,
regardless
apparently.
of what actually happened. Like, they straight up desecrated, like, a sacred forest and disrespected, like, the entirety of Japan's culture in front of the natives of the country. And, like, there's people being like, that's the greatest thing ever. Like, that is the funniest thing. They can't do any wrong. Like, ha 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 ha.
Because, again, it goes under the idea of it's not our country, it's not our problem, so it's funny to us because it's not our issue. And that goes back to the original idea of this podcast, is understanding that there is life outside of not only your life, this country. There is a world to take into consideration. And that's why I get mad when people make the assumption that everywhere is like here. That's not how things work.
That's exactly right. I mean, there's nothing other to say that other than that's exactly right.
And that's why I get mad when... Now, granted, a lot of those two people, their audience is primarily people that wouldn't know any better. But at the same time, you do have adults defending that or thinking it's funny. And I don't understand how or why. Now, I don't know if it's because you and I were raised right, or if I actually got spankings when I was a kid, or maybe it's because I have greater intelligence than that of a fifth grader. But really, I don't get it. It's one of those things where it's actually so stupid that I can't wrap my head around it. I'm not trying to sit here and justify and saying that I'm a very massively intelligent human being. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is just that this is so incredibly stupid. How can you justify it? How does that work? How can anyone sit here and think, yes, this is funny, this is acceptable? By all means, be as offensive and annoying as possible. Now, granted, I am offensive and annoying to a point, but at the same time, everyone knows it's only at a point of good faith, and I don't inherently go out of my way to desecrate, one, anything physically, and two, I don't go out of my way to upset people. I do it for the sake of purely only comedy on Twitch and barely even YouTube. But everyone knows I only do it to a point. I don't go out of my way to do it. That kind of stuff, not only desecrating that suicide forest, which I honestly was set through a roof when that happened, but it's just defending their actions entirely. How? It's wrapping my head around stupidity. I'm trying to, and I can't. I have sat there and pondered this for hours, honestly, I have. I have sat there at night thinking, how can people actually think this is okay? And I can't come up with an answer. I still haven't, honestly.
People are dumb. That's what it comes down to. Like, that's really like, people are too stuck up in their own little worlds to look beyond it, and ignorance is bliss, and that's why they're so content and happy. That's it.
And that's one other discussion we're going to have is just, again, while the idea of understanding that there is life outside of this country, it's also understanding that there's life outside of your own. And something I wish people would be more open to the idea of is just that your life is not the primary theme of the world. It's the primary theme of your own life. It's you. I understand that. But not everything starts and stops with you.
Right.
So that's another discussion I want to move into. Is just, I'm sure, again, as a college student, you've seen it a lot. It's just that everything starts and stops with me. I'm the focal point of this area, this class, this workshop, this life. Everything revolves around me. And no, that's not how it works.
Exactly.
As a college student, how often do you see people like that?
I'd probably say on a monthly basis when, like, it comes out, when, like, you'll be working on a project or something, or you'll be talking to somebody, and it'll just, like, almost, like, slip out. Like, to them it's casual. They're just talking about themselves, but then, like, it comes back and, like, you, like, hear that, and you're like, wow, that was, like, extremely narcissistic. Like, that was, like, unexpected.
It's always amazing when you have those people who you thought decently of until they actually open their mouths for more than a few sentences, and then you're thinking to yourselves, huh, okay, I see how it is.
That's what it comes down to, though. I mean, the thing is, you can't banish ignorance. You can't, like, truly get rid of ignorance for the sake of making the world a better place. You just have to accept it as it is and move on as best you can.
And that's one of the things that's hard to come to peace with. Is just that you would want, obviously, everyone to be as open as, not necessarily as we are, but just in general, open to the idea that there is life outside of themselves. But to do that, you need to be having the willingness to teach, right? You need to be willing to teach these people.
Yeah.
But then, on the counter perspective of that is, no one's going to want to learn if they don't want to. And that is something that I have tried to, not necessarily preach as a future NCO, but just preach in general, is that you can't make someone care as much as you do. I honestly put...
You've been telling me that for years. That's such a fact.
I have put in so much work into my job. And I hate saying this because it sounds, again, incredibly cocky, but if my workshop lost me, there would be a massive confusion as to who's handling what. Because I do a lot more than they think. Again, we handled a lot of new stuff recently. If I didn't do it, it wouldn't have gotten done. Because no one knew how to do it. So I had to be the one to take the step to solve it, to fix it, to understand how it worked. And I put my head on the chopping block for it. Because people need to be willing to do that. But people don't.
People are scared.
The willingness to learn and the willingness to teach. And the problem with it is that it's always on two different people. And typically speaking, one of them usually isn't willing if there isn't a mutual benefit. If they aren't both getting something out of the idea of you will teach and I will learn, other than we both have to be here, then usually one of them is going to be like, no, I don't want to. I have better things to do, or I just don't want to be here. And that's another thing, too, is understanding that you don't have to do everything purely for benefit. Again, no one likes to do things they aren't getting something out of. Trust me, no one does. But sometimes I personally think you should. Because absolutely. I think that it opens you up as a person as an intelligent human being to be willing to learn even when you have other things you could be doing or other things you'd want to be doing. But at the same time, if you are just always ignorant of I only want to do things purely when my benefit is being catered to, then that sets a precedent as to what kind of person you are to me as well.
Right.
Because I guarantee, because I see it a lot in the military, don't get me wrong, but I guarantee as a college student, you see people who are like, I'm not going to do this unless I get something out of it.
Exactly. Like, and there's a lot of people like that, and there's a lot of people that they want to take, like, somebody I know personally, I'm not going to mention any names, but if any of my friends are watching this right now, they'll know who I'm talking about. Somebody who will want the title and the prestige of a certain position or a job, but not the responsibilities that come with it.
Oh, of course not, because everyone wants the benefit but not the work. Well, I mean, it's the joke of myself, right? I mean, I jokingly say I want to be a staff sergeant with the pay, but not the kids. Kids, of course, being troops. When you have troops, you're not responsible for these people, and their mess-ups become yours. Which, again, I've never liked that idea because I've always been a person of, I do my job, I'm accountable for myself, don't put me in the group of people who don't do what I do or don't care as much as I do, right? So it's like, why should I be lumped in the same group of people who don't care? Guilt by association, right? But at the same time, it's understanding risk-reward. I'm going to be a staff. I have to accept that I'm going to be responsible for people. When they mess up, it's on me, and I have to take accountability for it. No one wants to do that. I don't want to do that. I'll straight up say it. I don't want that. I don't. I want the pay, not the responsibility. But guess what? It's not how it works.
Right.
And when it comes to having a high career paying job, you need to accept that too. With anything, really. Whether it's being responsible for people, just having to do things you really don't want to do, whether it's, we all have that job where there's one thing you have to do every single day that you just despise doing. It could be incredibly mundane. It could be incredibly complicated. It could just be, you could just think to yourself, this serves no purpose other than the manager's ego. Why am I doing this?
Yep.
But guess what? It's
a task and it's got to get done.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because, again, no one wants to go outside their comfort zone, but someone's got to do it. And if you want a paycheck, you got to do it. So far, we've been live for 52 minutes or so.
Yeah, almost an hour.
Yep. Just keeping you updated. We have 9 viewers watching right now. I say hi to everybody else. We are paying attention to the chat. We will not mention the Kardashians again. I apologize. But they are a great comparison when it comes to ignorance is bliss. Oh, man, are they... They are like the poster child of that. If literally, when you look that up, a picture of them should come up. That whole definition of, if I looked up stupid, it'd be your picture. Ignorance is bliss would be them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know that old first grade insult? Oh, man.
I know you are, but what am I? Yeah.
Yeah, that nonsense. So what else would you like to discuss? We can branch off into topics. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask.
Let's look at the
We can go into any other ideas if you'd like us to.
If anybody in the comments wants to say something, drop something in the chat and we can discuss that. If you have any opinions about that.
Yes. So one thing, now that we have 10 viewers watching, we discussed this, but we only had one viewer at the time. 1, our views and opinions don't reflect anyone but ourselves. And 2, we do not necessarily apologize, but the idea of this podcast is the willingness to discuss topics that make you uncomfortable or information you don't want to hear. If something we say offends you, we are sorry, but we are also not. It's information that is being discussed. It is what it is. It's information that we feel we want to discuss and talk about. If it makes you uncomfortable, then by all means, click off.
Everybody knows how.
Or, if you want to discuss it with us, we can bring you on to counterpoint us. But if you do that, you will debate kindly. You will not insult. There is no cursing on this podcast, believe it or not. And if you're going to be
minimal cursing, because
it's YouTube.
A damn here and a crap there doesn't really kill anybody, but we're not going to be cussing like sailors.
No, this isn't my Twitch. But really, we are more than willing to debate people, but at the same time, we're going to debate you as an adult, not as children insulting each other in high school.
If you can't do that, then we would recommend not coming on.
Yeah. But for now, we'll just discuss the two of us. The two things of our own. I'm offended I can't see your face. I actually didn't want to put a face cam on for this podcast. One, because my webcam isn't good enough quality, and my lighting in here is not that great. So it's good for Twitch. It's not good for this. I actually want to move up to like getting a full-blown DSLR or a good camera for my webcam in the future to get like that nice blur effect and everything like that. That's expensive though, and getting the cam link is also incredibly expensive. So that'll be an investment in the near future. Well, not near, distant future. But for now, it is what it is. And also having face cam off takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yep.
Where I can just talk and look as crappy as I want to because I actually look terrible right now.
I mean, I'm the same way. We're actually doing this. I'm in New York and Matt is in California, so between the time difference and where we currently like reside, it's like tough to have face cams because if one of us had one, the other one would need it. I don't have that yet. And also my dorm room is a utter mess. And my roommate's not here, thankfully, but if he was, then that'd be another issue of him coming in and out and such that. So that's another reason why we don't have face cams. Yeah, Jen, East Coast represent.
We have been trying to find the common ground. We found this to be the best time, really, for both of us. I woke up an hour before this podcast had to start. So to give you an idea of how mentally I'm at right now, I've only been actually conscious for about 2.5 hours. So that tells you anything, right? But if you want to go back to the original idea of what we were talking about, then by all means, if you would like to lead with a new topic, go ahead. What's eating away at you?
Nothing's eating away at me besides acids.
Well,
they eat away at you.
Yes. Yes, I'm glad you have mucus in your stomach that slowly stops that process, but anyway, moving on. Well, the original idea being what exactly? We had people, one, not accepting the world around them or just being ignorant of everything else that doesn't affect them solely, but also, I guess, finding your place. One of the things that, and people who've been following me on Twitter know this, that I have not necessarily been having as most people call it, a coming to Jesus moment, because most people know I'm not too religious, but I've been having more of a coming to a spiritual moment, right? And I think not everyone, but most people seek life or meaning outside of their own their own life. I have been having a lot of that struggle, mostly due to the fact that life has become an idea of repetition. And while repetition is comforting, it's also mentally exhausting. Because of the fact that my schedule is what it is and the way I work, I don't really see sunlight all that often. When the sun's up, I'm asleep. When I wake up, it's nighttime. I actually don't get sun very often at all.
Matt.
What?
Do you know what helps with that?
What?
Vitamin D.
Well, yes, I do drink Sunny D and things like that, orange juice. But
just have a supplement, my dude. That's what I do because
I'm on medication.
We get like 3 minutes of sunlight a day.
I'm on medication for it actually. Like I'm on prescriptions for it because my vitamin count is so low. Yeah,
drugs are great.
Yeah, right. I'm on 3 different kinds of drugs. It's awesome.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah. Oh, Holly said he needs some milk. So you hear that, Matt? You need some milk.
I guess so. He needs some milk.
He needs some milk.
That meme was fantastic. Watermelon. I love that one too. But I got my watermelon instead. But yeah, so I've been having those moments a lot, and it's mostly because I want to try and find just something more to life than what I have right now, or just making peace with that. A lot of it is going back to my mom, unfortunately, mostly because I haven't really made peace with that situation that happened years ago, and trying to find a way to be okay with it. It's hard, and I think that's something that it's very difficult too, is just the idea of putting your pride aside and asking for help. Now, I don't know about most people, but Steve can definitely tell you this. I'm not a person to ask for help, ever.
Yeah, no.
I would rather suffer in silence than let anyone help me with just about anything. So it's hard for me as a person to put my pride aside and ask for help unless there's something that I know I just can't do on my own. But if I think there's a small sliver of a chance that I can handle it on my own, I'm going to take that and run with it. I will handle it no matter what. And I was wondering if people in the audience and yourself, Steve, if people have had these moments as well where you've had to put not only your pride aside and ask for help for religious or any other reason really, and just say, I need help or I need guidance. It's one of those big turning moments where I've been connecting.
It's an epiphany,
I've been connecting with a friend of mine to help me make that peace, because he understands that while I might not be that religious, it takes a lot for me to do what I've done to get to this point, and he understands that. So that's why I've been trying to keep with it to the greatest extent possible. And when I finally said a prayer for not only myself but for my mother and everything a few nights ago, it was a big thing for me. To some people it's nothing, but to me it was, because that was the first time I did that in 10 years, if not longer. So that's why it was as big as it was. And I was wondering if you've had moments like that in recent memory, or just something you can counter as an example that you've had to deal with.
I mean, I'm not exactly religious myself, but I mean, usually in my friend group here on campus, it's my friend Ethan he gives people what are called come to Jesus talks, and it's basically he plays the role of your friend, where instead of you asking for help, he basically he'll see usually that someone's visibly upset, and then he will kind of poke and prod and ask questions to get out the real issue that's bugging you, and then he tries to offer you a solution, usually through religion, because he is religious. That's why he calls it come to Jesus talks. But I haven't had any of those myself.
I have an issue with that purely because I sought out the help on my own accord. My friend did not push me to help. He's like, I'm here to help if you need it, but I am not going to pressure you. Whereas that person would upset me purely because I'm like, I didn't ask for your help, and I don't want your help. And it's people like that actually turn me away from wanting to get help because I didn't ask for it. It's nice that you're willing to offer it. I didn't ask.
But it also, one of the reasons why a lot of people don't turn them down is because it's a courtesy thing. And while you don't feel like it's necessary and you don't necessarily want to hear it, for the sake of a friendship and for the sake of, hey, maybe he does have something to say, most people would listen.
Most people would, yes. And this is one of the cases of, if I didn't know him, then it's more or less, that's a point of ignorance. Like, you know me purely for the level of how you see me day in and day out. You have not really spoken to me. You, it's different. You know me. So when we have those talks for you or for myself, I'm willing to hear it out, obviously.
Right.
But when it's people I don't know,
right.
Then it's like, I didn't ask for your help, nor do I want it. So yeah, I get it. It's out of respect that you would hear him out. But for me, it's like, I didn't ask for your help, nor do I want it.
I mean, what about I get this is a little bit of a different this is going a slightly different place, but going off the idea of that you don't know somebody, what's nice about it is that it's like having a therapist or a counselor where it's anonymous. And that's why a lot of people don't mind it.
I think it all goes back to the idea of people willing to do it when they feel it necessary. Because remember when I said earlier that if someone doesn't want to actually listen, they won't? No matter how correct the information may be. I think that's kind of what I mostly am trying to say is just, I get it that if someone has a valid point, you should listen. Totally. But at the same time, if that person isn't willing to hear the information, they're not going to. And that's why, to a certain point, when it comes to, especially, I can say this, well, I'm not saying it's justifying why I can say it, but I understand it. Having dealt with depression as long as I have, to a level, trying to deal with it is my responsibility. I can't sit here and sulk forever as much as I would like to. Or, as much as I can, I guess. No one, you know what I'm saying? It's just that, to a level, dealing with it is your fault, and people will not your fault, but your issue. You can't say that everyone should always be willing to help you get past it. At some point, you need to settle up and say, I need to get past this. It's personal responsibility. Again, no one wants to hear that. But at the same time, I think that everyone should be willing to actually take those steps to actually get better.
Right.
Because, I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't suck. It does suck. Trust me, I know. Mm-hmm. But at what point does it become you just blissfully not trying, or blissfully ignorant of your own issues and not trying to get better? At what point does it become that? When does it stop being your fault or start being your fault? You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, I obviously on my streams I joke about being depressed, like I need depression, sustenance, I eat food, whatever. Mm-hmm. I make those jokes. That's how I inherently deal with my problems to some degree. But also, at what point does it become your problem?
When you can't do a single, it doesn't. It's no longer your problem when you can't do anything in your power to make that situation better.
Right, but at that point, this is the funny thing about that. At what point, who is keeping track of that? Really, like, what's to say that I can't do anything in this situation? Because most people either will say that I can't do anything regardless of the situation, or you're me who thinks they can handle everything. That's the funny thing about depression, is you said when you can't do anything in your power to fix it. Most people can't quantify that. Mm-hmm. Who is the ultimating authority on, yes, I can't handle this, or no, I can't? I only had that moment because I'm like, it's do or die time. And I got lucky. Right. But most people can't do that. They either think I can't handle anything at all, or I can handle just about everything and I'll suffer till I die. Mm-hmm. Most people can't figure that out. And that's the kicker.
Right.
And that's what sucks the most about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, really.
Oh, it is. All right. So bring this back to the finding your place. So where do we go from there?
When it comes to what exactly? Finding your place in the world, the universe.
You just went on this long tangent about depression and you being the ultimate authority. So is that your point? Is that like you have to be able to figure out like where your limits are to find your place or so? Or
yes. And
okay.
I say that purely because I think it's a rite of passage. Everyone is going to deal with finding themselves, as cliche as that sounds. Skip a rock down a lake, lean on a bunch of lockers in a high school cliche movie, you know, whatever it may or may not be. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to have those moments of trying to find out who you are. It could happen when you're my age. It can happen when you're younger. It can happen when you're freaking 40. But I think everyone's going to have to deal with it at some point. And the only person really, at the end of the day, who is going to get you through that is you. Because if everyone else is helping you through it, the only thing you're doing is running from the problem or blissfully dismissing it. At some point, you are the only one who can face the issue head on or run from it. Now, that's coming from someone who has a long history of running from his problems. So this is not me saying that I face everything head on and I'm a hard ass. That's not what I'm saying. This is coming from someone who has a history of running from his problems. But the only way they got better is when I faced them head on. And understanding that you're not always going to get the outcome you want. Especially when it comes to people around you. People you love, people you cherish. At the end, the problem when it comes to dealing with family and friends is understanding that sometimes you're going to make choices, or they're going to make choices you or they don't like. And your life is led by you. It's something that I've had a hard time coming to peace with, is just that you need to do what's best for you. It's great to be selfless. It's great to help people. But if you live your life trying to please others and make other people happy, you will be miserable. I can guarantee that. Because I've spent a majority of my adult life going out of my way to make people happy. And one of the hardest things to realize is, do you know how often any of that love is returned, besides from good people and like family? Never. It's usually never returned. Because most people who have that heart, who give and give and give, usually never get it back. Now, granted, you don't give with the intention to receive. But it's heartbreaking when it's just small things. People you go out of your way for can't even be bothered to talk to you. So again, as much as I hate saying it, and much as dealing with all that stuff does inherently really suck, the only person who can really help you get through stuff is you. Having help is fantastic, and it will help you get through it. But the only person who can really face it or put it behind you is yourself.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I agree with that.
Because if someone helps you through everything, what is that teaching you?
Nothing.
Exactly. You can be handheld through everything. That no matter the problem, someone will be there to bail you out. And that's not how anything works. It really does suck realizing that the world doesn't cater to your feelings or doesn't care too much about what you think. I still deal with that. For example, when I put all that work into something I did at work recently, and I got shit on for it, I'm sorry for the language. I get really invested in these conversations. It sucked.
Yes, I know.
It really sucked because I spent so much time on it only to be told, "Oh, you forgot to include this, so everything you did was meaningless." Even though that information I was not privy to until after the fact. So it's horrible.
Yeah,
it's really terrible. But that's just how it is. And as much as those people you hate that are ball busters, to put it bluntly, you're going to find those people everywhere you go. They're not few and far between. They're plentiful. They're everywhere. And ultimately, it's people like that who end up being the people over you. More often than not. I mean, that's just how it is, really. What do you think?
I really do think you're right with that. I mean, one of the big issues I see with like as you were saying, like where you're willing to put the effort in to do something and have little to no reward out of it. That's a majority of kind of what growing up is like. Because you can attest to this, people that we went to high school with, we don't talk to most of them anymore.
Nope.
And it's always for a culmination of different reasons, but a lot of the time it's because the people that we used to talk to, we don't agree on the same things anymore. We are going down two separate paths, and where I'm trying to go and where you're trying to go, or where he or she is trying to go, it's different for every person, which they have no obligation to stay the same to you, but you can't expect someone to be by your side your entire life, from when you're 5 years old, when you meet them in kindergarten, to on your deathbed. They have no obligation to do any of that. And so because sometimes people I see all these posts online about having your ride or dies, or having those people that you can always count on. It's you really can't count on everybody to be there for you, because people have their own paths of life they're going down.
And I think the funny thing about a lot of those posts is the people who post those things, I check back in on those posts years later. A lot of the times, those people aren't friends anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But one of the things that kind of sucks is just when it comes to going down those different walks of life, it's terrible to think that those people won't be around you much longer, as much as you'd like them to be. But at the same time, what does unfortunately sometimes really suck is just that people use that as an excuse to not be around you.
Right.
That's the counterpoint.
Oh, we just grew apart, man. It's
you could have put that effort in I've been trying to. So don't use the fact that I moved away. And this is something that as a military member bothers me to no end. It's just that I actively do try to be there for my old friends and let them know that I love you and I still care about you. But can you imagine how often that much is returned? Never. It's just, besides you and select others, it's never returned. It's heartbreaking, and it really makes me sad because I go out of my way to make people, to help people. I've given money to people I'm never going to get paid back. I've given items to people that they have not given me anything worth giving them that. The trade-off was nowhere near equal. But again, you don't give with the intention to receive, but at the same time, you could at least make it seem like it's worth my time. But you're not doing that either.
Right.
You're giving me no reason to want to be here, yet I'm still here because I want this to be better. One of the things that really does suck with growing up inherently is just realizing that, again, not everyone cares as much as you do.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying that you are the ultimate authority of you always care too much, or you this or you that. It's selfish to think that you always care more than everybody else does. But it's all situationally based. When you care more about certain situations, that's when you need to realize that. To say that you always care more than everybody else is making you seem like you're Jesus reincarnated, which is not true. So don't think that highly of yourself, right? But again, it's terrible. Seeing people that you just grew apart with.
Yep. I mean, one of the big things that I've seen, like, it's like it all comes down to situational awareness and the effort that people are willing to put in to like see a friendship through. Like you know this, Matt, being in the military, when you're on leave and you can come back to Buffalo and be like, hey, like, let's like hang out. And the people that reach out to you and like the people that are willing to take off work, that are willing to like not do something to see you, are like the people that like that social media would call your ride or dies.
As very inherent. But what is almost upsetting is people that you would call that, but then they prove you wrong. So, for example, when I spend $600 to come home, fly 2,000 plus miles, and you can't drive anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, that tells me a lot. It really does. And I understand that not everyone can take off work, but if I'm home for 2 weeks and you can't find time within 2 weeks, you don't work every day. And I'm sorry, but there are people who do have that time. Especially if I'm in the military and can take time off, so can you. I'm sorry, but it's heartbreaking. And there's a reason why, and more besides just that, but that's one of the great reasons why I don't go home much. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing you. But at the same time, everyone's like, yeah, I'll come see you, I'll come do this. And every time, guess what happens? I'm disappointed every time.
Something comes up. Something happens. Something's in the way, like, I don't have the, and like, and it'll get to the point where like you're willing to pay for their ticket out there and house them for like a week just to see them, and they're like, oh no, like it's a big show character.
It is, and it's heartbreaking to me, and that's why again it's one of the major reasons I stopped going home, because I need to stop opening myself up to that heartbreak. Again, it's only about the idea of not everyone cares as much as you do about a friendship or just about anything that you really do cherish. There are people that I've had to accept that I hold near and dear to my heart that I wish I could be close with, but they just keep proving to me that it's not worth my time. And it does suck.
It's a hard time, and it's hard to see that, like, to literally watch like a lifelong friend or like someone you thought you knew really well to like just kind of fade into the background and kind of like become irrelevant in like both of your lives.
Someone that at one point you thought was always going to be there.
Right.
But now they're just not, and it's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, again, it's one of the major reasons why not only do I stop reaching out to those people, but it's one of the major reasons why I started not necessarily being cynical, but I stopped really caring to a certain point about people. Again, as much as I go out of my way for those people, I need to start realizing that as much as the more I do this, the only thing I'm doing is twisting the knife in myself. That's all I'm doing is hurting myself at that point, because I'm opening myself up to that. And it goes back to the idea of personal responsibility. If you keep opening yourself up to that hurt, at some point, it's also your fault. Now, again, I'm not knocking on abusive relationships, but if you keep going back to people you know aren't worth your time, at some point, you need to look in the mirror and go, okay, this is my fault. Look, the effort is commendable. But at some point, it's your problem that you keep putting yourself out there for this.
Right. Oh, they'll change for sure. They won't hurt me next time. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. At some point, it's personal accountability. At that point, you're your own problem. And that's something that people don't like hearing. No one wants to be told you are your own issue. No one likes being told that. And I think that can also be one of the major points of this podcast, too, is, hey, you're your own issue. To some point, at some level, you're your own problem. It's hard to quantify exactly when you became your own issue, but as of right now, you are.
You are your own problem, and it's up to you to figure it out. Like, how to solve it so you are no longer your issue.
Exactly. It's hard to put a point down as to at what point in time did I become my own problem. But it's the willingness to accept that it is my issue right now. That I am the reason I'm here, and I need to fix it. It's hard to hear. No one likes being told that. I always go back to that how long conversation that we had in your car before I even enlisted. That
was about 5 hours.
5 hours.
That was from like midnight until 5:30ish, 6ish.
And again, it helped me get my butt in gear. It's
exactly.
No one wants to be told this. Really,
no one wants to be told they're their own issue. But like once you are, it opens up a world of potential fixes and like issues that are no longer like issues.
It's swallowing your
situations that
pride.
are no longer issues.
It's just swallowing your pride. For someone like me who never wants to reach out for help, can be one of the
Mm-hmm.
hardest things I've ever had to do in those select
Oh, yeah.
moments where I've had to be like, I can't handle this. I need help. Or, okay, you know what? He's right or she's right. I'm
Mm-hmm.
my own issue right now. But you know what? At the same time, now that I've recognized that, I can fix this because you know what? I know how to solve this. And you'll
The
be...
first
Go ahead.
the first step to solving a problem is admitting that you have,
Yes.
and that's like why so many people are stuck, because they have their own arrogance and their own like presumptions about themselves and this view that they cannot be wrong. There is nothing in the world that they can be wrong for, and if somebody says that, the person who said the wrong is the one who's wrong because they can't fathom what being wrong is like.
And one of the things that I've gotten from even talking to people older than me is just that our generation gets knocked on for lacking personal accountability. But I would argue that's not even remotely true, because I have seen older people who lack that entirely, who lack the idea of being accountable for anything that they do and hiding behind either I'm older, I have more experience, things like that, those tired old excuses, right? Personal accountability, I feel like, is something that has become lost on a lot of people. And again, it's one of those things that when it comes to being personally accountable, it always goes back to the idea of if you're being personally accountable, you're either doing the right thing or chances are you're doing the wrong thing. And again,
Yep.
no one likes to admit that they're doing the wrong thing or being wrong, but at some point you have to be open to criticism for one and just being wrong in general.
Right.
And you know, again, it always goes back to at what point is it your problem? And again, it's hard to put a nail in the head. You're not keeping a timeline of your problems, and if you are, wow, really, wow. But if you're actually not doing that, it's hard to really reflect at one point, could I have solved this? But I was just being not necessarily ignorant, but too optimistic of the future. There's nothing wrong with being optimistic. It's trying to find the healthy balance of being optimistic, but of being realistic. I find the counter to optimism isn't pessimism; it's realism. I have found that realistically, because there's nothing too different or too. There's nothing wrong with being optimistic, but there comes a point where you need to find that balance of I'm optimistic, but I need to be realistic about my situation as well, because it doesn't have to be negative. Just accepting the real repercussions of what you're thinking and what you're thinking about doing. I guess hard for me to get to that point, but again, the opposite of optimism doesn't have to be pessimism.
Mm-hmm.
It can be realism, which I have found to be a lot more accurate as time has gone on, because the realist part is usually what plays out more often than not. Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So why can't that necessarily be the standard? And now again, I'm not saying what I say is gospel. I'm not trying to spew that. But what I'm saying is, why can't that be more looked upon? Do you know what I mean? Why does it have to be that? Besides, when pure definition is the reason why they're separated. Because now what we're doing is going to the idea of totally defying not only necessarily social standards, but just what societal standards is, what's been accepted for years. So now we're going against thousands upon thousands of years of progress as to what's the opposite of this. Oh, it's this. But it doesn't have to be. The idea to challenge things like that. Now, again, one of the things that you and I have always done is accepting the fact that just because it's old doesn't mean it's right, but just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. You and I aren't necessarily... What's the word for it? Where you accept older ways, or you I can't think of the word, but
yeah,
I can't either. But just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. But just because it's old doesn't mean it's broken.
Right.
There are some things that we have as standards that still work to this day for a reason. Just because it can be challenged doesn't mean it should be. But at the same time, some things should be challenged innately because of what they set a precedence on. So. Maybe that's just me. I don't know personally, but what's your opinion on that?
I mean, we're still pretty similar. That like your opinions are basically similar to like equivalent to mine.
So we're almost necessarily in the echo chamber ourselves, which is a counterpoint.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's almost a counterpoint to our entire podcast. Is the idea of being open to the discussion, but at the same time, right now the only thing we're really trying to do is not necessarily give out information, but preach to a point. But yeah, I would say that you're correct. We do agree on a lot of things, but we are also willing to have those discussions more often than not as well. Because you
Right,
and I
right.
also don't agree on everything.
Everything,
Most
right?
things, but some things here and there we don't. But usually
Oh,
it's
yeah.
over nonsensical things.
All right. Let's take a look and see what we got going in the chat. I haven't checked it in a minute.
Got it. Is joining the military worth it in your opinion? See, that's a very open-ended question. And one of the things that as a military member, I get asked that a lot. But I can't say yes or no. I can't. And the reason I say that is because I don't know you. I don't know your life. I don't know your skills. I don't know what you got going on. I can't really say yes for these reasons, no for this, and then you make a decision. If I want to give you a real answer, I need to know more information about you. So I'm not saying type up your life story or even answer. I'm just saying that it depends on a variety of factors that I don't have. It's like the same people who say, should I enlist or commission? Dude, I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know your skills. I don't know you. I mean, if you're going to look at it purely from the benefits point of view, of course it's worth it. For everyone, I think, could use service. There are some countries where it's mandatory that every male over the age of, I think, 18 serve. I think Israel does that for at least 1 or 2 years. So, at some point, I would say yes, it's worth it, benefits-wise, but there are people I've also told that you are not cut out for it and to stay literally in the opposite direction. So, it's just depending on a lot. I know this sounds like a mean answer, but it's my real answer. It's just that I can't really give you one. So, from the benefits point of view, sure, everyone could use it. Realistically, I can't really say yes or no. I feel lost in life. I'm about to earn a bachelor's in finance at the end of the semester. So, I mean, if you're going to have a bachelor's degree, you could commission in the Air Force and be a lieutenant and then help you pay back your debt. And then that'd be good for you. I mean, with a bachelor's, you can go right into OTS, officer training school, and go from there. It'd be a good way to help you pay back your debt, things like that. But honestly, again, it all goes back to those things I mentioned earlier. But I would say that there's nothing wrong with it. And if you do 4 and get out, hey, you did 4 years of your life. Got good experience, military records on your resume now, which is always good for everyone, as Steve could probably tell you. So there's nothing wrong with it. But still, what I said prior still stands, unfortunately. If anyone else has questions, feel free to ask. And by the way, Steve, if you didn't pay attention, Nina says hi. Look at the chat. Nina says hello in chat.
Hi, Nina. Yeah. Sorry, I'm eating right now. I just have myself muted.
Got it.
Yep. But
I think there's a lot of things that I could really touch on when it comes to that, or maybe for myself, I'm just being too over analytical for my own good, and I'm just circumventing the honest point at hand, which naturally I do that a lot. So I mean, you could say that I do, but you know, it's just who I am at this point. But
right.
No, Steve did not serve.
No, I did not. I left high school, graduated in 2014, and I've been in college since then, just working part-time jobs. I thought about going into the military. My dad served in the Army. I've had a friend in every branch of the military, and I've been plugged at by every branch of the military to join, but I don't think I'm cut out for it.
Personally, I think you do great in it, but I'm not here to sell you. Either way, the reason I say Steve could tell you that military service looks good on a resume is because I know that he knows people that have been in, gotten out, and have gotten jobs purely because, not because they were in the military, but it definitely helps you having an honorable discharge on your records. It's always been said, and it's absolutely true.
Oh, yeah. Are you a big-time Airman Martin fan?
Bot. That's my bot.
Oh, God. I hate your bot. Turn your bot off.
No. You leave my bot on this.
No, bot. I'm not a big-time Airtime Martin fan.
Do you have an English? Really?
I don't. I'm in college.
Yeah, well, I've seen what a lot of our college system has been producing lately, and the fact that you can even speak remotely comprehensible English is telling me a lot. And that's a good thing.
What do you need to be cut out for the military? That's a question.
That's another open-ended question. Well, again, personal accountability, level-headedness, the ability, well, this goes under personal accountability, but the ability to accept when you're wrong, and openness, and a work ethic, please and thank you. It's very hard again to say that, but there are people in service that obviously came right out of high school or college that have no work ethic, or as we mentioned earlier, think they're God's gift to everything purely because A, they have a bachelor's degree, or B, because they're themselves and they think they're worth everything and don't have to do something because they are themselves. And in the military, that doesn't fly at all. You do what you're told. It doesn't matter who you think you are. When you wear that uniform, you're just like everybody else. It doesn't matter. So at that point, you need to understand that you're not you anymore. You're a person, and you're a person in a team, and you will do your part to help the team. How do you manage a relationship in the military? Poorly. That was a joke, kind of. It's hard. Again, a lot of factors can go into that. Depends on who you're dating. Depends on where you are. If they're in service with you, naturally it's actually a lot easier because, one, they understand how your life functions, so it's easier. But if they're not, it can be very difficult, mostly because it's relatability. Even though Steve and I are close personal friends, he can't really relate to my military service that well because he's not in. As much as I can talk his ear off all day about what I do, what I can say, of course. But at the end of the day,
told me we've had this conversation before.
Right.
Talk my ear about what you can do and stuff.
But at the same time, it doesn't matter to him because he's not there. He doesn't do it. It's one of those things that you know what I'm saying? It can be different between the difference between doing it and just seeing it or being told it, right? So it can be difficult if your partner isn't in service or has no idea. It's not unmanageable. It just makes it harder. But it also depends on if they're with you or not. Long distance is honestly horrible. It's so hard to do. But it can be done. Trust me, it can be done. So don't let that discourage you, please. But on the whole, it can be difficult, but it can be done if both people are willing to put the effort in. But that's the problem. It's just that some people aren't willing to put the effort in because it's instant gratification. Everyone just wants everything now, isn't willing to work at it. I want to move away from the military topics real quick because this is becoming a one-sided podcast, and Steve is just kind of sitting here.
You should just have an Ask Me Anything type of stream just on your own because, like,
yeah,
I have nothing to really say about the military besides what I know from you.
Right, and that's why I want to move away from it because now you're being overshadowed. So taking
it's
it
okay.
back,
I mean,
right now, well, I'm not to shut you guys down. It's just that I don't want Steve to just be sitting here to sit here. So. We'll move on to different forms of questions if anyone has them. Just general questions about our opinions on a world topic or opinions on a video game for all we care. It can be anything. Just I want to keep us both engaged. No, don't be sorry. Games. Don't be sorry at all. I just want to make sure that he has a reason to be here. So
it's not a big deal. It's a weekend in college. The only thing to do normally at my college specifically is party and drink, and I don't do about much of those. Like at the same time, so I'm just chilling tonight.
Yep, I work tomorrow.
I'd rather be here than out there.
10 p.m.
Yeah.
So even still, let's see. We really discussed our original point, not necessarily into the ground, but we did go pretty far into it. But I think I didn't really get your opinion on when it came to dealing with depression and it came to that personal accountability factor. What was your opinion on that?
Depression and that, and accountability, I guess it comes down to, like, recognizing that, like, it's essentially what you said, but, I'm trying to think of the way to word this without, like, reiterating exactly what you said.
I mean, if you're going to do that, then you can just. I mean, I was just trying to get a question for you to answer, but if you're just, you agree, then that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. I mean, from my personal experience, like, I really don't have like diagnosed depression and stuff, like, so I really can't speak on like how I react to that. and how I kind of like account for that in my own daily life. But I've seen people like it, like yourself and others. And the biggest issue is when, I guess, for a lot of people to be able to have accountability for their own issues is like they have to be like almost, a lot of people have to be told that they can, like, you can talk about your issues, you can, like, you have these problems and you should talk about them because it's not good not to talk about them. And when you're enabled to talk about them, then you can take full accountability for it without fear of
reprisal.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's really my whole set on that.
it all goes back to the idea of personal accountability and just being open to being wrong, which we've talked
Right.
that into the ground. But
Yep.
we do have some questions. Do you believe there'll be a second civil war? Honestly, no. I think personally people talk a big game but aren't willing to back it up. That's kind of my honest opinion. And that realistically, in this day and age, we're not necessarily too advanced for that, but people aren't actually willing to put the effort into that. A lot of people aren't willing to put in the effort in to go do a lot of the things they need to take care of in their personal life, let alone things like that. I don't think that can happen in this day and age. I mean, I'd like to think that, but I actually believe that as of right now, people are just morally, they got their heads up their own, what's too much. But when it actually came down to actually having a real war, it wouldn't go over well. And not only that, but the military itself would squash it. Really, it would. Mm-hmm. The military's job is to keep peace. Mm-hmm. So we would inherently have to step in on both sides and say, everyone, stop it. So, yeah. And thoughts on both Hillary and Bernie running. Hillary's not going to win. And I think Bernie's going to get overshadowed by, was it McCain? Not McCain. No, Obama's vice president. I can't think of his name.
Joe Biden.
Biden, thank you. Biden, I think, is going to win that, personally, as the primary. I think people are starting to realize how much of a hypocrite Bernie really is. He's not a true socialist. He wants everyone but himself really to be a socialist. Either that, or he actually believes that everyone can actually live the way he does, which is stupid. That's not feasible at all. So that's just how it is, personally. So Hillary's probably not gonna win. Bernie's gonna get overshadowed by Biden, and Biden's probably gonna be the Democratic primary. Let's see. I'm not gonna give my opinions on Trump. I think he's decent at best. I think he'd be better if he just shut his mouth. Really, there's a certain level of professionalism that comes with being the president, and as much as you think you're correct, you need to learn to be quiet at certain times. It doesn't matter how right you think you are. There's respect and professionalism. Two things he clearly, honestly, doesn't demonstrate very well. And yeah, that's my thing, is that as great as he might be, he needs to learn to be quiet. But that's that's the only opinion I'm going to give, is just that he needs to learn how to keep his mouth shut.
Yep. I think we should steer away from the political conversation simply because we don't want to, we're here to have a civil discussion about varying topics, but politics is something we all kind of agree not to talk about, simply because of our own positions, Matt being in the military, me being a civilian, and our viewers.
Yeah. So we'll steer away from that too. We're not trying to really coerce the topic into things only we want to talk about. It's protection, really. I don't want to discuss military purely because that alienates Steve, and politics can get ugly incredibly fast. And I'm not going to touch on that topic for that question either. Oh. Weird. Go away. Is there anything you'd like to discuss, Steve?
I mean, topic-wise, we've really already... I mean, since you and I both have similar perspectives on that, we kind of ran that one into the ground pretty quickly. But overall, I think we... there's really nothing else to talk about, in-depth screaming into the void. Why? But I mean, what are your thoughts on?
Sorry, go ahead.
What are your thoughts on Apex Legends?
The game itself is fine. I think it's not optimized well for streaming, really, or in general, because as powerful as a PC I have, it still runs at times, but it's fun, and I think you should get it, mostly because it's free, so you don't have to pay anything for it. You just need the Origin. You just need to make an Origins account, which is annoying because Origins is a terrible game launcher. It's not nearly as good as Steam or even Epic's.
Or Uplay, even.
Yeah. Thoughts on gender identity and sexuality of a character being the priority in games nowadays over actual gameplay and story? Oh, yeah. Dumb. Absolutely stupid. I'm sorry, but I read it. So when I did that voice spot on Combat Wombat's video, the people, and this is the other things too, is just there are people out there who think that characters in video games need to, one, be voiced by the characters they're representing. So if a black woman's in a game, she needs to be voiced by a black woman. And the characters themselves need to be diverse purely for the fact of being diverse, regardless of the lore or story at hand. Apex Legends is purely an online battle royale. It has no story. It has no lore built up behind it. Diversity literally serves no purpose whatsoever. It could be a battle royale of robots. It could be a battle royale of anything, and no one would care. Making a game diverse purely for the sake of it is good on paper. But what does it serve? What are you really accomplishing besides pandering? Honestly, what are you accomplishing at that point? You're pandering to people, which is good. You're making them happy. But at that point, you're doing that purely for that reason. And then you have people who only play those characters purely because of how they look. Not because of their abilities, not because of how they play. They could be the worst character in the game, but they'll play as them still purely because of how they look or how they talk. Which is stupid. Because any real gamer is going to pick the most broken character ever, obviously, or pick something that's good for a team composition. Any real gamer knows this. So, again, diversity is not a bad thing. But having it in there for no reason, other than to say, hey guys, we're diverse, we're so great, serves nothing when your game has no story-driven focus. I mean, that's my personal opinion. Again, I'm not saying diversity is a bad thing. I'm just saying in this particular instance, especially with Apex Legends, it doesn't serve any function other than to say, hey guys, look at how diverse and cool we are, we're hip, we're SJWs too. It doesn't serve any function.
Right. My thought on that being like the gender identity and sexuality of a character. I mean, the fact that it's a priority, like it should be a priority, but it shouldn't be the priority. Like as Martin said, gameplay and story is what's number one. Video games are telling a story. And that's what their purpose has always been. Tell a story and make people like enjoy their time pressing buttons on a controller for 16 hours. So when you take away from that by focusing on what people look like and stuff, it's like why would you make a game when you could just make a couple 3D models of these characters that people want so badly and like have them have them able to skin themselves like in the game that way, so that way you don't have to like take your time badgering and like parading to these people that like the SJWs that are essentially causing you grief.
Well, the funny thing is, it's just that, for example, the character on the screen right now that I have selected called Lifeline is voiced by a white woman. And when people found out about that, they were infuriated because of she's got a Jamaican accent, kind of Jamaican, something like that. I can't really put an exact name on it, but you know what I mean. It's an accent kind of like that. And then for Red Dead Redemption 2, when one of the main characters that's Indian was voiced by a white male, everyone was furious about that too. And to me, I'm thinking, why does it matter who voices them? The only thing that truly matters should be how good the voice acting is.
Right. Like if it's low quality, you're not going to want to play because death to your ears every time you go to a cutscene or they say something due to like an action in game.
Right, and I think that's my point, is just that there is nothing wrong with diversity, but pandering itself is a problem because at that point, you're doing things purely to make people happy, not for the benefit of the game itself. For example, my favorite game series releasing a game in, 3 weeks? If all of a sudden they tried telling me that my favorite character was turned into a black male, I'd be like, okay, but why? Why? Well, why would you change this? There is nothing wrong with that, inherently, besides the fact that you're doing it for whatever reason you think you have. Not everything needs to be diverse. It doesn't have to be. There is nothing wrong with a certain level of whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry, but there isn't an issue with that. Because misrepresentation is only purely when it's done out of malicious intent, which most cases it's not done that way. It's just how it was styled. So again, I don't understand why that's even a discussion. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And do we feel that the society we live in is going against men? Because it's more a political question, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but on the whole, to a degree, yes, but overall, not too much. I think the people who spew that bullcrap are mostly people who don't have any realm to change something. Regardless, to a degree, yes, but it's more political, so we're going to cut that off. And because Steve has to go soon, so we're going to make this, try and keep this on short-level topics, but to answer your question, so I'm not ignoring you, to an extent, yes.
I'll agree with that, but we'll keep it short simply because slightly political in its nature, and we're not trying to go there, but yeah.
I mean, I do want to branch onto the politics of things at some point, but right now, to not be hypocrites, Steve and I would just be literally sitting in our echo chamber, spewing what we believe is gospel. We would need to have someone to provide counterpoints, but also just be able to give
almost
things
to moderate even.
To moderate and to give things that we don't think about.
Right.
So, yeah, we don't want to be hypocrites because we literally said earlier, we need to be open to having discussions and talking to people on the other side, which I stand by, but we don't have that right now. So the only thing we'd be doing is feeding our egos, essentially.
Saying don't get political is very hard to do because
politics is
when you bring up a topic including society and like society and men, you're going to have to draw comparisons to somewhere. And where do these comparisons come from? They come from the politics of they come from like the media. And that's where you draw your comparisons from.
Right. And not only that, but whether people want to admit it or not, politics in and of its core is in everything. Everything you do is based on a political ideal. Because politics, it all comes down to human ego and human interaction. Politics all by itself is in everything you do, whether you know it or not. So to talk about something like that, where society is a political topic, you can't do that. It's impossible. You're going to have to get political on that topic to, one, discuss it fully, and to really dissect it, and two, to discuss it appropriately. So that's my honest opinion. It's just that if you really discuss a topic like that, you have to be willing to take that step, which right now we cannot do.
Maybe sometime down the line, in like a couple months or something, when we both have our time, we can have a podcast that's more politically related, simply for the fact of getting it off the table, so that way we don't have to worry about striking up the conversation again and again and again.
Right, and I have no issue discussing things multiple times, but I'd also want to make sure this podcast actually becomes a consistent thing. You know what I mean? The fact that we actually do it a few times over.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say, Steve?
No, honestly, I mean, that's basically what I got. I mean...
So we'll leave this last 10 minutes to any other questions, non-political or military, please, that we can discuss before we both have to unfortunately sign off. I appreciate it. I think the height of the viewership was around 15 or 16. And to everyone that's still watching as of right now, for my 13 viewers, I appreciate you guys coming in, asking us questions, things like that. So we appreciate any questions you guys have and things like that, and all the discussions and things along those lines. And who let this guy stream again? I did, Mike. I did. I let it happen. But yeah, so in these last 10 minutes, we'll open the floor up to any questions you guys may have that we can touch on before Steve has to go. I mean, I can stick around if it makes you guys happy and discuss things. Thoughts on the status of Dead by Daylight? It's broken. It's trash. Stop giving him money. That's it. That's all I got. The game's actually more broken now at the latest stage of its development than when it first came out. When you can manage to break a game after it's come out years later, and it was more stable when you initially released it, that's horrible. How do you manage to mess up that badly? That's terrible. That's coming from a guy who put over 500 hours into that game in the span of like 9 months.
All right. At this time, Curly, I'm going to sign off. It's been fun doing this with all y'all. And we'll hopefully see you here next week, Saturday.
I'll stick on for a little bit longer to answer other questions, but Steve's gonna sign off. But I'll be here for a little bit longer to answer and ask stuff to you guys. But everyone say goodbye to Steve, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Let's see if anyone else has got anything else before I cut this thing off. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this totally pro Apex Legends gameplay in the background. We had one win. We actually had 2 last night. My first 2 wins in this game. Not that fantastic, but, it was something. I was only alive during one of them. Am I staying in service? I don't know. I still haven't been able to get to actually find that out. It's looking like I might, and I'm not opposed to that, but depends on my opportunities when my contract's nearly up. Depends on what it looks like I can do near the end of that time frame. If not, I'll stay in. I'm not opposed to it. Simple right now, mostly because I'm only a little over halfway through my contract, so. When am I going to get Monster Hunter World? When it's actually at a price that I'm willing to pay, which I don't know what it's at right now. And I have not played any of the series prior, so I don't know how story-driven those games are, but I wouldn't understand anything. And I have a hard time just jumping into games for no reason. So, unfortunately, probably not anytime soon. Unless, of course, it goes on sale, then I'll get it. How much free time do I have? I mean, I do 4 on 3 off right now, and I stream in-game a lot. So, I mean, there's time. There's free time to be had. But it all goes back to your job and how often you have to work in your position. And people with higher ranks naturally are busier, and people with lower ranks usually have a little bit more free time because they're not as mission essential more often than not. So it depends. But a lot of factors can go into that. But you'll have free time to do things. You don't work every single day. Well, that's good then. We'll check how much it is on Steam, then we'll see how it goes from there. I'll be going for another 8 minutes and then I'll cut it off. I don't discuss my job. I do not tell people my job is. There's no negotiating that one. Still the original price of $60? Yikes. Well, we'll see. I know I've seen the game go on sale a few times. I've only seen it go as low as 40 or so. So we'll have to see. I changed this chow runner. It was at one point. They were paying me to be a chow runner for 2 weeks for 8 weeks of my life, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I never want to do that again. It was just annoying because there was no benefit. I mean, of course, when I say there's no benefit to it, like, it only had downsides. It was the worst job to have. Like, I would have rather have been latrine crew than doing that. Because you were at the mercy of everyone else. It was terrible. Your entire flight, your MTIs, other MTIs. Do you have any additional education opportunities in the military, like skills that could be applied to civilian life? Of course. But it all goes back to, again, what your job is going to be and how you apply yourself. That's why I can't really answer things like that, because it all goes back to you and how you will handle yourself in your career. You'll get those skills. Whether you use them is up to you. I don't want these podcasts to be too consumed with military ideals, mostly because that alienates my other host. So I don't want to do that too much. I have no problem answering questions, but when they become consumed by that is where I'm going to start taking time to take a step back. Okay, best man at the wedding. Sorry, man. Steve's gonna be my best man. He's had that slot for a while now, but whenever I get married, whatever. Sorry, Blue, you can be a groomsman, though. How about that? Because you get, 5, I think? 5, 6. I don't know if there's, a limit or a societal standard. I don't know. So I don't know what the ideas are on marital things. I'm not too well versed on those topics. So also, gameplay for next time. What would you guys like to see? So I'm doing Apex. So I'm going to try and do a different game every podcast. I'll try to. I got no problem doing the same game numerous times, but I will try and do different games every time. So this time it'll be Apex. Next time I might do Overwatch because I already have gameplay recorded for it. So find a non-conspicuous way of getting rid of. Good luck with that. Got 5 more minutes. We want to try and make sure these always go at least 2 hours. How long have we been going on for? Yeah, it'll be almost 2 hours. I have this set right now to not ultra high latency, but normal, so I can do more real-time interaction. Any books I'd recommend? Actually, yes. Hold on a second. Let me get a link for you guys. Here we go. I think I can post that. Haha. Yes. And I do play on PS4. I have one. I don't really play on it, though. I'm an Xbox and PC guy, primarily. So I have one. I just don't really use it. I only bought it to play God of War and a select other few games. I'd recommend reading the Harry Potter series. Movies were alright. I watched them. I enjoyed them. Didn't read the books too much, though. There's another book I was trying to find the link to. I can remember the title of it because I'm actually going to be getting it myself in the near future. Another book I was recommending, this is it, Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. Actually, a book that's on my reading list right now. Oh. Here we go. Get out of the way. Not that. Here we go. My friend recommended this book to me as well. And the link is too long. Fantastic. This is the title. I can at least give you guys this. Oops. There we go. Alright guys, I think that's going to cut the video there, and to answer your question, Blue, if you want to game we can play after I just eat some dinner after this podcast is over with. If you want, you can join Discord after this podcast is done, but But other than that, guys, I appreciate everyone that came out for this first one. We're going to be doing this every week on Saturdays, same time, same place. We'll try and branch out to different ones at the same time. I'll see if I can stream this to Twitch at the same time, too. I know there's ways to do it. I just need to look into it. But for now, I think this is going to see as a primary specific YouTube thing. But for now, we'll keep it on YouTube, and then we'll branch off if it actually does well enough to where I can justify putting in the effort to do so. Other than that, I will see you guys next time on the Screaming Into the Void podcast. See ya.